currency keys. Kaufman had hidden his fortune, hundreds of millions of dollars, inside the engraving of a fake 1966 diving watch. Greed, Charlie sighed, standing on the dock as the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of violet and gold. People kill for a code they can't even touch. It's not just the money, Charlie, Sarah said, walking over to join him. She leaned against the railing, her face silhouetted against the sunset. It's the power. Kaufman treated everyone like they were beneath him. His partner, his wife, the crew. He made them feel invisible. Charlie turned to her. You never make me feel invisible, Sarah. She stilled. The sound of the gulls and the lapping water seemed to amplify the silence between them. You're a lot of things, Hudson, she said softly, a playful yet tender smile touching her lips. But invisible is definitely not one of them. He reached out, his hand hovering near hers on the railing. Sarah, Detective. Jesse's voice cracked over the radio, shattering the atmosphere. We've got a hit on the watch. The deckhand, Blaine, is heading back to the boat, and he's not alone. Veronica Goodwin is armed. The romance was shelved for the adrenaline of the hunt. Charlie and Rex raced back to the yacht, arriving just as Veronica, the cold-blooded tech expert, held Blaine at gunpoint. It was Rex who saw the opening, his powerful body launching through the air before a shot could be fired. As the sirens faded and the suspects were led away, Sarah found Charlie sitting on the edge of the pier, his hand resting on Rex's head. You okay? She asked, sitting down beside him. Just thinking about the watch, Charlie said. All that money, and Kaufman ended up alone on a boat he didn't even enjoy. Sarah rested her head on his shoulder. At least we're not alone, Charlie. He didn't pull away. He leaned his head against hers, the two of them watching, the last of the light disappear over the Atlantic. Chapter 3. The Ghost in the Gin. The Devereux Distillery was an institution in St. John's, a place of tradition and family legacy. But family, as Charlie was learning, was often a breeding ground for resentment. Willem Devereux, the patriarch, was found drowned in a vat of his own gin, a botanical-infused death that was as poetic as it was gruesome. Labrador tea, Sarah said, holding up a small dried leaf in the forensics lab. That's the secret ingredient. It's what made the new gin special, and it's what linked the murder to the attempted poisoning of the critic, Simone Sawyer. The case was a tangled vine of siblings vying for a dying man's approval. Alan, the eldest, was a man broken by his father's expectations. Melanie, the daughter, was a woman who felt she had to steal her father's secrets just to be seen by him. Throughout the investigation, Charlie found himself thinking about his own past. He grew up with the weight of his father's badge on his shoulders. He understood the pressure to be perfect. You're doing that thing again, Sarah said, bringing him a cup of coffee as they sat in the distillery's office, surrounded by old ledgers. What thing? The Hudson brewed. You're taking the weight of the world on your shoulders. Willem's death wasn't your fault, Charlie. And neither is the way these children treated each other. Culo nace, culo nace, culo nace, culo nace, culo nace, Charlie sighed, taking a sip of the bitter coffee. I just wonder if anyone ever truly knows their family. Alan confessed because he thought he killed him, but it was Melanie who finished the job. She drowned him to protect an inheritance he was going to give her anyway. Sarah sat across from him, her eyes soft with understanding. We choose our family, Charlie. The ones who stand by us when the fog rolls in. The ones who don't ask for anything but our time. He looked at her, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. Sarah was his family. Rex was his family. The badge was just a piece of metal, but the people beside him, they were the truth. I'm going to make a big announcement soon, Charlie said, mimicking Willem's final words with a dry smile. Sarah arched an eyebrow. Oh? And does it involve a vat of gin? No, Charlie said, his voice dropping an octave. He reached across the desk, taking her hand in his. This time, he didn't let go. It involves a dinner. Just the two of us. No radios. No crime scenes. No, Rex, well, maybe Rex can come, but he has to stay in the car. Sarah laughed, a bright, musical sound that filled the dusty office. It's a date, Hudson. But if you bring a forensic kit, I'm leaving. Chapter 4. The Wild Frontier. The date never happened. Crime in Street. Johns didn't respect romantic schedules. The Craner family, a drug-running dynasty that had eluded the SJPD for decades, had finally slipped up. Tyler Craner had killed a man in broad daylight, and there was a witness, Wyatt Donner. The search for Wyatt took them out of the city and into the rugged wilderness of Cape Royal. The terrain was treacherous, a landscape of dense forests and jagged cliffs overlooking the churning Atlantic. "He's hiking the coastal trail," Charlie said, checking his gear. Sarah was with him, having insisted on coming along to help process any evidence they found at Wyatt's campsite. But they weren't the only ones looking for Wyatt. Jason Craner had sent a professional Serena Rickett, a woman who killed with the precision of a surgeon. The woods were silent, save for the wind whistling through the fir trees. "Something's wrong," Sarah whispered, her hand instinctively reaching for Charlie's arm. Suddenly, a shot rang out, echoing through the trees. Charlie threw himself over Sarah, shielding her body with his own as they hit the dirt. "Charlie!" Sarah screamed as she saw the blood seeping through his jacket. "I'm okay," he gasped, though the pain in his shoulder was white-hot. "Get Wyatt. Rex, go." What followed was a harrowing game of cat and mouse in the forest. Charlie, weakened by blood loss, used every ounce of his training to lead Serena away from Sarah and the witness. He was a shadow among shadows, a man driven not by duty, but by a desperate need to ensure Sarah survived. In the end, it was Rex who saved them. He appeared from the brush like a vengeful spirit, taking Serena down before she could pull the trigger on a cornered Charlie. When the backup finally arrived and the helicopter landed in the clearing, Sarah was the first one at Charlie's side. She was crying, her hands trembling as she applied pressure to his wound. "You idiot," she sobbed, though her voice was full of love. "You could have died." Charlie looked up at her, his vision blurring. "Had to. Protect the family," he whispered. Chapter 5. The Shoreline Peace. The recovery was slow, but it provided a rare window of peace. Charlie spent his days on the deck of his trailer, watching the waves. Rex was always by his side, ever watchful, and Sarah was there every evening. She brought food, she brought books, and she brought herself. They didn't talk much about the cases anymore. They talked about the future. They talked about the house they might buy one day. One evening, as the moon rose over the water, Sarah sat beside him on the bench. The air was cool, and Charlie wrapped a blanket around both of them. "I've been thinking about what you said in the woods," Sarah said, leaning her head on his good shoulder. "About protecting the family." Charlie turned his head, kissing the top of her hair. "I meant it, Sarah. I've spent my life chasing shadows, but you're the light. I don't want to do this without you." Sarah pulled back just enough to look into his eyes. "You don't have to. I'm not going anywhere, Charlie Hudson." He leaned in, and finally, there were no radios to interrupt, no suspects to chase, and no fog to hide the truth. He kissed her, a long, slow kiss that tasted of salt and home. Rex let out a soft huff of approval and rested his head on their feet. The Atlantic surged against the shore, a timeless rhythm that echoed the beating of their hearts. In a world of chaos and crime, they had found the one thing that was untraceable, unmarked, and infinitely valuable. They had found each other. Epilogue. The next chapter. The SJPD bullpen was buzzing with the news of the Craner convictions. Jesse was practically glowing, and Donovan was handing out his famous potato salad to celebrate. Charlie walked in, his arm in a sling, but a smile on his face that hadn't been there in years. Rex trotted beside him, his tail wagging as he greeted the team. Sarah came out of the lab, her eyes immediately finding Charlie's. She didn't say anything, but the way her face lit up told everyone in the room everything they needed to know. "So," Jesse said, leaning against the desk, "what's next for the dream team?" Charlie looked at Sarah, then at Rex, then back at his partner. Whatever comes, he said.